Well, isn't there a Civil War song, The Vacant Chair? Oh, there it is.
Hey, we are live.
We are
Chris
live.
Anderson. What's the phrase again? Calling Chris Anderson in London.
This is Chris Anderson in London calling Rick Beyer in some place west
In
of
Chicago.
Boston.
And
That's
I
right,
just
Chicago.
I just want to say to our guest who's standing by, don't be alarmed that you can't see yourself. That's because we've started the show while you were getting your tea, but we'll get back to you in a moment. So you're good.
Don't go anywhere, Mark.
Don't go anywhere, Mark. So, well, we're here. Welcome, everybody. We're back after a week off. It seems like a year. And we'll be here for the next...
Wait.
Oh, Chris.
Ah.
I mean, it is you, Chris, or is it like your son or something?
It's my body double,
you look a
yes.
lot younger with that haircut. Absolutely.
I do.
And we are just waiting for a moment for people to join us to get started. So post something to let us know that you're here. And we have a lot of people already coming in and posting on this Mother's Day. And happy Mother's Day to those of you who are mothers and those of you who have a mother. To the rest of you, text me. I'd like to know something about your life.
Brian, thank you. Thank you for that news. I didn't know that Arsenal won. Thank you,
Arsenal won today, so it's a good
deal.
day for Chris. And we see Xavier's here. And Xavier, I got the book that you sent me, so that is all good. And Chris, not only you have a haircut, you've been prowling around London.
I have been. We've been working on doing some site inspection work for the Battle of Britain tour and a special operations executive tour that we've been developing.
Fantastic.
So that's finding some great new sites, so that's exciting.
Fantastic. And I do want to remind everybody that we are in the process over the next few weeks of transitioning the show away from the Stephen Ambrose Facebook and YouTube pages to our dedicated History Happy Hour Facebook and YouTube pages. And right now you can watch from both. It won't be true forever. We don't want History Happy Hour and Chris Anderson's new haircut to fall off your mental map. So whether you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, we want to make sure that you find the new page and like it or subscribe or whatever so that you can keep watching us once we've completely moved over. And we'll keep sending out notices and bothering you all to hell and gone about that for the next few weeks.
Oh my God, another. Yep.
I know. So, Chris, what do you think? Are we just about ready to get started here?
I think we are.
Give us the cue.
The bar is open.
The bar is open. I had to find the bell. I was like, "Oh my God, the bell! Where's that?" So happy. Assisted Happy Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day to Anna.
Happy VE Day +1.
Also, do you know about the connection between Mother's Day and the Civil War?
No, but I know you're the person to tell me.
Yeah, because the holiday kind of got its start in 1868 when Anne Jarvis organized a committee to establish a Mother's Friendship Day to reunite families that had been divided during the Civil War. So it didn't actually become a national holiday until 1913 when eventually Anne Jarvis's daughter, Anna Jarvis, taking up her mother's cause, made it a holiday. So that's one Civil War connection with the day.
And guilted children for time immemorial after that.
And then Frank Hallmark got involved.
Yeah,
and that I'm just making that
the
part
magic
up.
just happened.
I know. And then the other thing, Chris, I have a quiz for you today because I know how much you like them. And let me just get my screen here. Do you know whose birthday it is today? It is the birthday of a Civil War figure today.
Did he have a long beard?
At some times in his life he did, but that is everybody in the Civil War.
That's right. Did he have a top hat?
Did he wear a dark suit and sort of pose like this? Yeah, you're on it.
Okay.
Yeah, I can show you his picture.
Okay.
Maybe you'll identify him from his picture.
John Wilkes Booth. No, John Brown.
John Brown, born this day in 1800 in Connecticut. I didn't know.
Well,
he was
you
from
know, Rick,
Connecticut.
technically he was dead before the Civil War, so it was kind of wrong to tell me that it was a Civil War figure, wasn't
But
it?
his soul goes marching on.
That's true. Oh, best
Okay.
song. Awesome song.
Okay. Okay, so clearly this is the day to talk about the Civil War. We have a lot of good cues there. And so we're going to. In April of 1862, a U.S. Navy fleet under the command of Admiral David Farragut who one day would be damming the torpedoes in Mobile Bay, fought its way up the Mississippi and captured the largest city and busiest port of the Confederacy, New Orleans. And, when we talk about the Civil War, we tend to give a lot of attention to famous battles like Gettysburg and Vicksburg, and New Orleans, not so much.
Not so much.
Yet the fall of New Orleans was a critical turning point in the Civil War and kind of an early harbinger of Confederate defeat. And to talk about that today, we've invited somebody we both know well, historian and author Mark Bielski, who's going to join us on the show. Hey, Mark.
Hey,
Mark
good to see y'all.
Yeah, we've had endless audio trouble with Mark, so it's great to hear Mark.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to see y'all because you both have, we've all worked together before, and it's just fun just to be together again.
Yeah,
Mark,
absolutely.
You look about a year older. What? It has been a year.
And I want to say that Mark is the author of a new book that's just come out, A Mortal Blow to the Confederacy, The Fall of New Orleans in 1862. And I imagine some of you guys know Mark as well from his trips at Stephen Ambrose Tours. And he has a PhD in history from the University of Birmingham in England, and that is the right way to say that. And he also hosts the History with Mark Bielski podcast. Thank God somebody else doesn't host the History with Mark Bielski podcast.
No wondering.
Because that would be an issue, Mark. So,
Right.
Mark, I know you're drinking tea, but Chris, did you bring a cocktail today?
I did.
Okay, so we can celebrate Arsenal's victory with tea and beer and whatever we have.
Well, here. Look, can I tell y'all something?
Absolutely, that's what
I
you're here
brought
for.
my Jefferson Davis cup.
I'm noticing this isn't going to be reflected in a slight bias in your telling of the story.
Ooh, it's trouble from the beginning of the show. Trouble from the beginning of the show. The Jefferson Davis cup.
I always like to be controversial.
Well, okay.
Chris knows that.
No, I would never heard of that before.
I just, if we're going to stir things up, that's just the way it's going to go. So, okay. Mark, you write in the book that Admiral David Dixon Porter, who also played a crucial role in this and many other Civil War naval battles, that Porter ranked the fall of New Orleans as the most important event of the Civil War. So why was it important, and why don't we spend more time talking about it?
Well, because Porter was actually, he was not an admiral at that time. He was a commander, but he was very influential. And the reason we don't spend time talking about it because everybody was so concentrated on Gettysburg and Vicksburg that they forgot all about, the biggest city in the South.
So what is it then that really makes this so important? Why is New Orleans? I mean, New Orleans is a long way from Richmond. It's a long way from a lot of places. Why is it even important to the Confederacy?
Well, if you have the biggest financial center and shipping center, New Orleans was the largest shipping center in the world at that time. If you want to hold on to that, just like I wrote in my book, like if you have New York, why would you give that up?
Right. Well, you actually had this great comparison at the beginning of the book. Since it's the beginning of the book, you can tell people about it. That won't prevent them from buying the book. But about sort of saying, what if it was New York during World War II? You want to run us through that?
Well, I do, because if it was, had it been New York during World War II, and we had a fleet of enemy ships, let's say Nazi Germany, approaching New York, don't you think that, not you, Rick, or Chris, but don't you think that it would be important to defend the biggest port, biggest city? The Confederacy was a new country at that time, and New Orleans was a bigger city than if you put Charleston Richmond, Memphis, and Savannah together, New Orleans was still bigger and economically a lot more important.
So Mark, in the book, you have this great quote from Lincoln saying that the Mississippi is the backbone of the rebellion. Clearly, lots of people up north saw New Orleans as important. You see New Orleans as important. But in reading your book, I get the impression that nobody in the Confederate High Commander cabinet thought New Orleans was that important. So I'm wondering, how did they let that one fly by them? Because,
well, Chris, it's an amazing thing that they did. Everybody thought that any threat to New Orleans was going to come from upriver, come downriver, and one of the great strategies that the Union put together is when they gave Farragut command and just sent him complete command, and they just sent him, and he said he knew New Orleans because he grew up here basically, and he said, we're going to go up through the Mississippi River. Now the key, if I may point this out.
You're the author, of course you may.
Okay.
I don't know. Can we take a vote? I don't know. Should he really be allowed to point this out? I mean,
better him than me.
All right. Point. Whatever it is, point it out.
In the War of 1812, the British did not come up the Mississippi River. You know why?
You're going to tell me.
Because they were completely under sail.
Right.
So they had to come in from the east.
Oh, okay.
And when Farragut brought his navy up, they were under steam and sail. So if you can steam by the forts while you're getting shelled, you got a better chance of getting upriver.
But again,
because
Mark,
go ahead.
No, because if these guys knew they'd seen steamships and there had been sightings of the Union fleet at the mouth of the Mississippi right after the South seceded, I just am amazed that nobody in Davis's cabinet said, geez, just in case.
Well, we've all been scratching our heads about that. It's amazing that the Confederate cabinet at that time, besides Jeff Davis, who was from southwestern Mississippi, as Chris, you went to school in the South, and Stephen Mallory, who was from Florida, who would know this area.
He was the Secretary of the Navy, right?
Yes.
For the Confederacy.
Right. And Judah Benjamin, who was from Louisiana, South Louisiana, you would think that they would have some kind of inkling that.
Yeah, you're not making him look any better, Mark.
I'm not. I'm trying my best, but.
Yeah. So, but they really did. And we should explain. And I don't have a map to put right here. I probably should have gotten that map, but
okay. Here's a basic one.
It doesn't matter.
Mississippi's a really long river.
Right. It starts.
And it's way up north.
Starts up
way
here,
out at the bottom.
It goes down to the bottom.
There's
all the way to the Gulf.
That's right.
Well, and then below New Orleans, you have about 70 miles of river. Right? So either people can come to New Orleans coming up from the Gulf of Mexico, up that 70 miles of river, which is narrow and goes like this, and get to New Orleans, which is why the Confederates think they can defend it, or they can come down from Vicksburg, or they can come down from
They were
Minneapolis if they
actually
want
up
to, but
more north of Memphis, actually,
Okay.
at that time. Yeah.
So people, the Confederate, the genius Confederate High Command thinks that is meant to be a knock. They
please.
think it's going to come from the north, when in fact
Yeah.
the genius Union Command decides to come up from the south. So that's step one of kind of hit them where they ain't, I guess.
That's a great way to put it. Because remember, Farragut, even though he was born in East Tennessee, he grew up in New Orleans. And he knew all the waters here. Not only the Mississippi, but the Gulf of Mexico, because he had grown up sailing here. So he knew, like, if we could sail past the forts, Fort Jackson and Fort St. Philip, and get by the guns, we're home free. Because all you got to do is get by the guns at the forts, and then you're up at the city. They get to the city, and Mansfield Lovell, who was in command. Oh, excellent.
That's Mansfield Lovell.
Right.
I'm on. See, we're listening to you, Mark. We're hanging on every word.
Okay. He knew that if he made New Orleans a military target, that it would be in deep peril. And we had a lot of international people here, plus of course women and children. And he didn't want to put them in danger, so he pulled all the troops out. Plus, strategically or tactically, he wanted to get all the Confederate equipment out, what they had left. So he left, and then the Union ships came up, and it was a pretty easy surrender.
Right. So the real battle is down river, right, at Forts
Exactly.
Jackson and Fort
At the
Phillip.
forts. Yeah.
Am I interrupting you, Chris? Did you
No, I was
you're
gonna
poised
say,
with a
so-
question?
As you know, throughout the book, you talk about poor Lovell, like what few troops he has gets stripped, they get sent up north, stripped, sent up north. You talk about a Confederate naval commander named Hollins, who's actually competent, which seems to be a rarity amongst the Confederate command. So what is actually happening up north of New Orleans that's causing them to divert all of these resources
Oh, that's a good question.
up north?
It was just Richmond was making all the decisions, because you
Right.
couldn't make a decision down here,
Right.
like Lovell, for example, without going through Richmond.
Right.
You had to do anything. So he had to keep transferring troops up north, up to Tennessee, to Albert Sidney Johnston, and to Army of Northern Virginia. It wasn't really the Army of Northern Virginia yet, but up
Right.
in
So
Virginia.
It was just a general call to send troops there. There wasn't like an army
Right.
coming down. Yeah.
All the guys from up here were transferred up north.
Okay.
And the only people that Lovell had here were, young trainees, and they were working with broomsticks instead of guns.
Yeah, they're not very effective.
No. They were training, and their morale was very low.
So man, look, Mark, I think people who know about the Civil War, they know the names of a lot of commanders. I'm not going to list them. I don't think Mansfield Lovell is a very commonly known person. And I think you write about this. He gets a lot of blame for the Union capture of New Orleans. Is it appropriate?
Well, he does, because I know you are going to be surprised about this,
Okay.
but Jefferson Davis deflected all the blame for the loss of New Orleans
No. A
to
politician?
Mansfield Lovell. That could never happen today.
Oh no. No. No, they're good. Thank goodness history, doesn't teach us any lessons for today.
Right. And he immediately asked for a hearing, and it took him a year to get that. And he finally got that, and he was, and actually Robert E. Lee was the one who insisted that he get his fair hearing. And
3 years after he got railroaded out.
Almost. No, it was almost. It was almost. And then he got completely exonerated. But all the historians, newspapers, and everything until 1961 blamed him for losing the city.
Oh, so he's only blamed for the first 100 years. That's not so bad.
Now whose fault is it?
So let's talk. We talked a little bit about Mansfield Lovell. Let's talk a little bit about Admiral Farragut and Admiral Porter. And you corrected me. Thanks so much. That Porter was not an admiral at the time, but he did become one. Darn it! In fact, he and Farragut were the first two full admirals, I believe, in the U.S. Navy, and they're both kind of Civil War heroes. We've got Porter on the left and Farragut on the right, but they've got an interesting and complicated relationship, right? Because they're actually adopted brothers. They grew up in the same household, but Porter's also busy throughout this battle. Like, he helps Farragut get the command job, but then he's busy trying to undermine him. It's a kind of a weird story.
It really is, because they were foster brothers, and Porter just seemed to work to undermine Farragut the whole time.
After getting him the job, basically.
Yeah, he recommended him. As the story goes, of course, I wasn't there in New York.
Oh, don't be modest.
When the decision was made. But Porter just worked to undermine him. But what he did, he was very effective, if I may add this. He manned the mortar fleet that shelled the forts, Fort Jackson and St. Philip, and he did a great job with that, which enabled Porter to get his gunboats up past past there. But they weren't. You would think that two foster brothers would work very well together, but they didn't.
Did Farragut have any idea that Porter's under his command? He's my younger foster brother. He's under my command. Kind of like the relationship I have with Chris, where I'm his younger foster brother and I'm under his command. And does he have any idea that his younger foster brother is meantime writing letters back to Washington saying, "Oh, look at how terrible Farragut is doing. I'm not sure he's the right person for this." Does Farragut have any idea, or does he eventually find out?
Of course he did, because all the officers had intelligence. I don't mean intelligence like up here, but
yeah, not all officers have that kind of intelligence, but they
right.
got it.
But other officers who would check on things. So he knew about Porter.
So did that make family reunions a little awkward?
Oh, it was terrible after the war.
Oh, was it? Really? Seriously?
Oh yeah, they had like a big brouhaha when they got together for Mother's Day.
Gotcha.
Batanga. All right.
So, Mark, one of the things that I think comes through in the book pretty clearly is it would be safe to say that the Confederate command was a little bit dysfunctional, and that Lovell really didn't command much of anything because he had to ask Richmond to do everything. He had no command over the naval troops. The Confederate Navy troops didn't have command over Louisiana Navy troops, and it all gets very confusing. That seems to me to be a problem that's inherent in the Confederacy throughout the war, right? They need, you mentioned unity of command.
Right.
And there is no unity of command. So is this just kind of a reflection of the Confederacy's problem anyway?
Throughout?
Yeah.
Yes, I would say so.
Go on.
Well, I would say that the key was, and I think I mentioned this, well, I know I mentioned this, is one thing is Farragut got complete control, kind of like Eisenhower did in World War II. Right. Farragut had complete command over any naval vessels, land troops, whatever. And as Chris, as you pointed out, Lovell had to go through Richmond to get a gunboat to move,
right?
Or anything that happened on the river fleet, and to ask for more troops, which is difficult for him.
So, are you still there with us, Mark?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Looked like you were freezing up there for a moment, but you're good. So we have a question from one of our viewers, and you may not know the answer, but I'm going to put it out there for you anyway. So it's okay. It's okay either way. But Xavier is in Spain, and Xavier mentions that Farragut's family was from, I guess, originally from the Balearic Islands. I'm probably saying that wrong, in Spain. I thought he was from Glasgow. That was what I don't know.
Right.
Yeah. So, do you know if he spoke Spanish? And he mentions also that General Meade was born in Spain. Is that is not in my knowledge base. So, do you have anything to share on
General
this?
Meade actually was born in Spain.
Wow, I did not know that.
And
thank you, Xavier. Thank you. Yeah.
I mean, he was. I think his family was ambassadors.
Yeah.
And of course, he was American. And after Gettysburg, Spain claimed America for their own.
Yeah. Okay.
No, I want to hear your reaction.
Yeah. I'm thinking there's something in the tea, is what I'm thinking of. So Meade was born in Cadiz. His father was a U.S. ambassador. I'm sorry, that just escaped me. I always think of George Meade, the Pennsylvanians, the old snapping turtle, all that stuff. I just did not realize he was born in Spain.
I don't know. I don't know about
Farragut.
Farragut was born in East Tennessee.
Yeah. Okay.
And then he moved down here, and he grew up here.
Okay. So, but maybe I don't know anything about his family, but I know that Xavier is often right. So we give him his creds.
I'd be glad to look it up.
Well, yes, but not now.
No, but not now. We need you here now.
The thing is that we have, maybe 100 people watching, and I bet they all have Google. So the information is going to appear somehow in the chat area pretty soon. I want to switch gears a little bit here in this battle. Chris, is it my turn? I'm sorry. I'm losing track.
I think it's your turn.
Okay.
I think it's your turn.
Just checking here. I want to talk. So this is the big battle here is a naval battle, the battle for New Orleans, and it takes place down around the area of Fort Jackson and Fort St. Philip, about 60 miles or so south of New Orleans along the winding river, depending on how you measure. And David Farragut is bringing the fleet up, the Union fleet, and the Confederates have a lot of hope invested in some newfangled ironclads. This is about a month after the Battle of the Monitor and the Merrimack in Virginia, and the Confederates they've completed one ironclad, the Manassas, and they have two others, that's the Manassas there, they have two others under construction, and they're really hoping that these are going to be the big, the Davids that are going to beat Goliath. So what happened? Tell us about those ships and what happens there.
Okay, well, they were actually building what you're looking at there. The Manassas is really a small ironclad that did quite a bit of damage downriver. But the two boats that they were putting their hopes on were the Louisiana and the Mississippi. And they were like the super ironclads. And
really big, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I have to say this, in true Southern fashion, they didn't get either one completely finished.
There was a strike on one, right? The
Right.
Louisiana, I think. I don't remember which one, but the carpenters go on
Right,
strike.
'cause they-
Do you not know that time might be important here?
Yeah, I'm just going to make a suggestion that the next time the South secedes, maybe they ought to wrap some of this stuff up before they secede, not after. Just saying. Sorry.
Yeah. No,
No
Chris,
sedition
you're
advice
right.
from you, Chris. Yeah, where are you at in England? How did they do in the American Revolution?
Careful, Mark. Careful.
I'm Rick, Chris.
No,
Uh,
Can you let
But
Mark answer
actually,
the question?
Chris, you know that my professor in England told me that how much time they spent on the American Revolution?
What, like 30 minutes?
10.
Yeah. Until they needed Lend-Lease, and then
All they needed to say was
And
they
then-
won, we suck, and that was all they needed to teach at Old Brum there about the revolution.
No, it's basically we withdrew.
We withdrew.
We're back to the ironclads, however.
Okay,
Yeah, back
all
to the
right.
islands.
The two super ships, the Louisiana and Mississippi, well, they never got them completed. They moved the Louisiana down to the forts to be at least part of a force against the oncoming Union fleet. And all it could do is moor up against the riverbank and fire off the guns off its port bow. I mean, that's not an effective gunboat.
No, and then eventually the Louisiana is. The captain of the Louisiana is a great character in your book because or not the captain, but the commander of the naval fleet,
Yeah.
Mitchell. He's really screwing a lot of things up. But this is the end of the Louisiana, so you know it doesn't end well, as it's basically set on fire, floated downstream, and eventually explodes. But we have a question from one of our viewers, James Lynn, and I know James lives in New Orleans, and he's a historian as well. And he asks the question, sort of the alternative history question, if the ironclads Louisiana and Mississippi had been 100% completed, would they have made any difference in the surrender of New Orleans?
They absolutely would have. The Union commanders, Farragut and everybody in the Union Navy said if they had gotten those gunboats in action, they would have completely controlled, the Confederates would have completely controlled the Gulf and the lower Mississippi River.
So this is probably why in the South there's a lot of I'm really going out on a limb here, Chris. Anti-union sentiment. It's because of that strike that prevented the completion of the boat that would have changed the course of the war.
Well, no, because I think given how screwed up the Confederate, Mark can comment on this, but given how screwed up the Confederate High Command was, they could have had the USS Texas from World War II parked in the Gulf of Mexico, and the commanders still wouldn't have been able to get the job done because Lovell couldn't have gotten permission to move the ship to...
Right, you mean from Richmond?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I do want to go back just briefly to the Manassas, just because I found the story of the Manassas quite fascinating, and we don't have to go into detail in it, but just they built this small ironclad. It goes into action actually earlier than this Battle of New Orleans, at the earlier Head of the Passes battle, which is really before the Monitor and Merrimack, I think, or at least around the same time as it. It's pretty successful, and it scares the living daylights out of the Chris, wake up! It scares the living. Studying his notes.
Come on, boys.
Jeez.
Well, I just want to make sure you're still with us.
I'm trying to...
I just if I see this, I'm nervous. I get nervous. I don't want to have to finish the show without you and then have to call your house and say, go upstairs and check on him. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, getting back to the
Manassas. Okay. But anyway, getting back to the Manassas, it's they're scared, really scared about it. They call it something like a hellacious machine or something like that, hellish machine. And even when it is abandoned and it is left as a derelict and floats downstream, it's still scaring the Union Navy even then.
Right. Well, the Manassas was actually was very effective because when the first Union ships came into the mouth of Mississippi, the Confederates at that time had a very good commander in Commodore Hollins, who grew up on the Chesapeake Bay, and he actually knew what he was doing. And when he saw the Union ships coming up the river, he put his troops in action, especially the Manassas, and he figured we're just going to go full steam ahead and hit them. It's, the old thing, the best defense is a good offense. And that's what he did, and he won that first battle at the passes.
But then, Mark, in true Confederate fashion, Hollins actually wins this victory, lifts everybody's morale. He's got control of the situation, but then they send him north. Is he ordered north or what? So he's...
Yeah, I knew you were going there.
Of course I was. I want answers. I want answers.
Because you know what he did?
No.
He went over command and just took things on his own shoulders, and then they sent him to Richmond for a desk job.
That makes all the sense in the world.
Oh yeah. So they sent their best naval guy up north to Richmond, where you ain't gonna do much
Not a lot
fighting
of water
in the Navy there.
Yeah, no.
I'm just thinking this Confederacy was never destined to succeed. I think it had some fundamental flaws. I'm just coming to realize this.
No, that's just that softball's just hanging there, Rick. I can't. So, Mark, what are the other? I mean, we shouldn't. All kidding aside, we've been talking a lot about the naval component of it, and that's why we probably remember it. Some of these amazing ships, and it's like a, steampunk sort of TV or whatever. But what's going on the land side? Because obviously are there land engagements? Is the Union Army doing anything, or is this purely a naval?
Well, the Union Army was coming up by ship, because if you think of it, I mean, both y'all have been down here. There's not a lot of land access to New Orleans coming up from the mouth of the river.
Right.
So they were coming up by ship. And that's where, in the book, I talk about how they sent the brigade down to it's not even there anymore, to the landing to stop any advance of Union troops moving
In quarantine?
up. Yeah, quarantine. And the river at that time of year is about as high as the levee goes. And if you think about it, you'd have to see it. But the river is as high as the levee is. So any guns pointed at any guys on the shore would be at eye level. So they had to surrender, and that was the end of quarantine. And then Butler came ashore with his troops.
General Butler.
Yeah, Benjamin Butler. There you go. With his troops, and they just started the occupation.
I want to come back to General Butler, who I think is the spitting image of Dennis Franz. Do you remember from Hill Street Blues? I always thought if they ever did a movie about this, they should.
I never thought of that.
So now it's going to be like that song.
I mean, it's identical. I mean, does
Mark's
anybody?
not going to be able to get that out of his head now.
I didn't pull a picture of Dennis Franz, but go look up one day after from Hill Street Blues. It could be the same person. It could be an impersonator. But I want to go back, Mark. I want to kind of take a comment you made and go back to Fort Jackson and St. Philip. And as we said, they're like 60 miles south of New Orleans. You can see here on the map they're on each side of the river. Farragut's got to get up between them, which he eventually does. They blast the forts with mortars. They break the chain. There's various. It's a nighttime action, which sort of seems to happen a lot in naval battles in the Civil War, not so much in land battles. And then they move on to New Orleans. But Fort Jackson and Fort St. Philip are still there today. And we were down, I think you were there with us, down at Fort St. Jackson a few years ago for the Stephen Ambrose seminar down there. And so you can see some of the casemates here. And you do get a sense here of how low-lying these forts are. When you look at the ship there on the Mississippi River, it almost looks like it's above the fort. They're pretty down low. So what I was going to ask you about is, these are kind of monuments to history and to the battle. They weren't particularly effective, but they are still there. How easy are they, or how hard are they to visit these days? Because the water's rising, right? This is not an area that it's easy to get to down in Plaquemines Parish.
Well, this time of year, just like that photo you just showed, that's how it would have been back in the war in April, where the gunboats would have been at almost eye level. You can visit Fort Jackson, and there's the Fort Jackson Museum there. Fort St. Philip, there's really not much access.
And when we were there a few years ago, though, it was open by appointment, but there'd been a lot of hurricane damage down in that area. There was some questions whether they were going to keep letting people down there, but they still are.
Yes. And there, I think when you were there, did we have the Plaquemines Chamber come and visit us?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
They were raising money. They were trying to get money to keep things restored and stuff.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of sympathy for the poor Union soldiers that were in that campaign, because when we went down to the fort, my first time there, and I was learning all this great new stuff, and I started walking around the fort, and as I am wont to do, I left the group, and one of the Plaquemines Parish people came running over to me and said, "Don't go down there, the alligators are down there." I was like, "What?" So
wow, we almost lost. I wondered why you weren't in any of the pictures, and I was looking for you. And I couldn't find you in any of the pictures there.
Yes.
So okay. So we dealt with Forts Jackson and St. Philip, but then we do have to come back to Dennis Franz. Excuse me, to Benjamin Butler. He is a politician. I think he's originally from Massachusetts.
Right.
He's a politician who made a general, and then he becomes the military governor of New Orleans, where everybody just loves and respects him. Right? Do I have that right?
I think.
Are you kidding?
He's just misunderstood.
He's just missing his nickname. He's got two nicknames: Spoons for his greediness and Beast for his actions. But
Right.
tell us a little bit about why Benjamin Butler is so hated in New Orleans, probably still today.
Well, of course, you can still go to the French Quarter and buy dishes that like bedpans that have his image in it.
Okay.
I mean, to this day, not that we
Hold a grudge?
we remember things here,
You hold a grudge. Okay. Yeah.
right? But he two things. He was terrible, and if you in the book, one of the things that the Union officers did, the senior officers did, is they came into the French Quarter, and they would commandeer houses, not French Quarter, more the Garden District, commandeer houses and take furniture and move it around as they saw fit.
Mm-hmm.
Butler did a couple different things. He decided on the good side, which you never hear anybody talk about him on the good side. He said, I want to clean up this city. And he said the first thing to do is we're going to clean up the French market, which hadn't been, which is down on the Mississippi River. Both of y'all know where that is.
Yeah.
But so he got fire hydrants opened and he just washed it completely out. And then he said the good thing about New Orleans is it rains a lot, so it'll be very helpful in cleaning up. And then he put this is kind of early for back then. He said it's illegal to litter.
Wow.
And he said that anybody who litters is subject to jail. And one guy deliberately went out and dropped a piece of paper out on the road, on the sidewalk, and was arrested and sent to either Ship Island or Fort Jackson, because he made them both prison camps. So he did some good things.
So what you're saying then, Mark, is it took somebody from up north to come down there and show you how to run your city.
So that's on the positive side of the ledger for Benjamin Butler. What's on the negative side?
Chris, I didn't. I was waiting for that.
We're moving right along, guys. What's on the negative side? He does a couple of things.
Butler?
Yeah, he does a couple of things that really anger New Orleans. His order about women, for example.
Yeah, the women's order, where any woman who insulted a Union officer or soldier was subject to imprisonment.
And would be treated like a woman of the town,
of the street,
plying her wares.
Right.
And that doesn't mean like Tupperware, right?
Which means right. Not Tupperware. We didn't have that back then.
Sorry.
Which means
a prostitute, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I was waiting for you to say that.
Thank you. So he's gonna. So this is an order where he says that if women aren't respectful to Union officers, we get to treat you like prostitutes, and it's for some reason this bothers New Orleans.
Right, because they would. There were ladies who would insult or spit on Union officers or soldiers, when we were occupied, and even dump bedpans on them. And then that's when he drew the line.
Well, I just reading your book, I was made aware of the fact that New Orleans was part of a state that was in rebellion against the government, right? So I've always had kind of a hard time with New Orleans claiming that they were being ill-treated when they kind of seceded from the Union and they were trying to maintain martial law. I mean, what could Butler have? What should Butler have done?
Left.
Well, I'm sure a lot of his soldiers felt the same way. But if you had
go back up north.
Oh, okay.
Perfect
No,
solution.
he was actually, Chris, he was sent down here. First of all, he was nobody liked him up in Washington.
Well,
He was on the peninsula in Virginia, and they hated him there. Although he did come up with the contraband law
right.
that captured slaves were contraband of war. And then, but he was terrible as a military commander. They couldn't wait to get him out of Virginia, away from Washington. And they said that, well, where do we send him? And they said, the Union command said, Ship Island, Mississippi.
Which is basically nowhere. 10 miles.
12 miles south.
12 miles off the coast.
That's like the end of Stripes when they get sent to a weather station in Greenland.
Almost. Except it's a lot hotter.
A lot hotter.
Yeah. So they sent him there, and then little did he know, all of a sudden a lot of troops were coming into his force because of the invasion that they didn't tell him about. Because the only person who knew about it was Farragut. It was one of the great operations that that was kept secret. When they decided to put Farragut in charge and do that operation,
Right.
Nobody said a word. And it was amazing how that whole fleet came, if you think about it, that whole fleet came from New York and down around the Florida coast, and nobody knew about it.
Yeah. So the Confederacy didn't have coast watchers. I think that was another lesson learned.
They're terrible.
Mark, sometimes it seems like we're still fighting the Civil War 160 years later.
Oh, get out of here.
And there's definitely a contentious battle about how we talk and remember the Civil War, how we talk about it and remember it. So, what do you think, as we're wrapping up here, what do you think should be our takeaway from this time in history, from not just from the Battle of New Orleans that you've written about, the fall of New Orleans, but about the Civil War as we look back on it 160 plus years later?
Well, in all honesty, I think we can't look at what went on back then the way we look at things now. We have to, and we have to. The other thing is we have to look at the actual soldiers who fought on either side, and think, what were they doing? What were they in there? So give them all credit for, fighting for what they believed. I don't know if I made that clear, but
You danced
Chris,
around that very well, Mark. What?
No.
What? Go ahead.
Chris, from going to school in Farmville,
Right.
A statue of a Confederate soldier in the town square is that guy, that kid, most likely, was just there to defend his home from invasion. And Rick, some of the guys from up north, the young kids, they were just going down there because, I reckon we got to preserve the Union.
Or because they were drafted.
Yeah, or drafted, exactly. Same on the southern side sometimes after 62. But you can't condemn the soldiers.
So Mark, then when I start to pass the hat on the next Ambrose tour to put up statues to all the brave loyalist soldiers who helped defend their country during the American Revolution,
I'm in there.
all right, good.
You heard it on
Next on History Happy Hour,
You
Chris's
heard it
new
on
campaign.
History Happy Hour, right? I can see a new cause that Chris Anderson is undertaking. Mark Bielski, thank you so much for joining us today
Thanks,
on
Mark.
History Happy Hour to talk about the fall of New Orleans in 1862. And a reminder that Mark's new book is A Mortal Blow to the Confederacy, The Fall of New Orleans, 1862. And you can also check out his podcast. We had somebody say that they missed your podcast. I don't know if that's because they can't get it anymore or you're not doing it anymore. But if you're not doing it, get back to doing it. And if you are doing it, folks, check it out. Check out History with Mark Bielski, his podcast. And thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks, Mark.
Hey, great seeing y'all.
All right.
Yep. Hopefully see you more often.
Yeah.
Okay.
Preferably in another country. All right.
Yeah, take care.
Take care.
Bye.
Okay. Wow. Okay. The New Orleans has fallen, and the Civil War. This Civil War episode is over on History Happy Hour. Thanks. That was great to have Mark on there and to see Mark again. And I want to just mention, as I said, I'm going to keep mentioning constantly that we are transitioning everybody to new Facebook and YouTube pages. It's a time of tumult. Tumult, one of my favorite words. And we are going to send out our first History Happy Hour newsletter later this week. So if you want to get that and you want to find out our innermost thoughts. No, we're not going to be doing that. But if you want to know what's going on,
I think they figured that out already.
yeah, let us know. You can just add your name. You can send us an email and say you want to add your name to the newsletter list, and that email is up on the ticker on the bottom of the screen. It's info@historyhappyhour.net. We will not be selling your email to anyone. We will not be putting you on this list unless you tell us it's okay. So, it's up to you. Act now.
Entirely.
Supplies
Entirely.
are completely unlimited. See stores for details.
That's right.
Okay, so that message is done. And Chris, it turns out we do have a guest next week. And so tell us about our guest next week.
Yes. I'm going to show you the cover of the book
Okay, excellent.
because I can't pronounce his name very well. I'm sure I'll mess this up. Jonathan Petropoulos is a professor of history, and he has written a really wonderful book about the man in charge of basically looting France for art. We know an awful lot about Goering's art collection. I know I talk about it on the Band of Brothers trip sometimes. But Petropoulos does a really wonderful job of talking about the system that the Nazis put in place to basically loot France. And the one person that kind of heads up that operation, and what's very interesting I found in the book, is that he talks about years and years after the war, he got to know this man, and he was alarmed by how engaging he was, and he found himself having to examine this person as a historian, but becoming kind of attached to him. And the book deals not only with what happened during the war, but how he dealt with this strange relationship with this former high-ranking Nazi.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds really interesting, and we hope you'll join us for that and for other upcoming shows. And stay with us. We promise not to take any weeks off between now and July 4th. So we're with you. We're with you through the rest of the spring and into the summer.
Hoorah.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a safe week. Be safe.